The only controversy surrounding Amazon's Rings of Power, because it is in no way fucking connected at all to anything Tolkien has written, particularly Lord of the Rings, the only controversy surrounding that damn show is the one the showrunners and the media have conspired to fucking manufacture. And in this case, claim that the first two episodes have been review bombed by racist trolls attacking it for including a number of black characters on screen. Now, whatever criticisms we've had basically has been because they've been inserting identity politics and an agenda where it doesn't belong, namely tokenizing characters, race swapping them purely for pandering purposes. Hello, this is Mara Jade, and I'm back with another video, and we can't simply point out, hey, Tolkien wrote elves to be described as this way. Tolkien wrote dwarves, particularly those in Khazad-dûm, as this way. There are diverse races or skin colors amongst the different races that you could use. But they choose not to look that way. They choose to use the member berries, and if we at all criticize that and say, hey, this is not at all aligned with Tolkien's world building, we're racist, we're sexist, we're misogynistic, and so forth. That's the controversy that's being ginned up. And that's the playbook that you all keep wanting to dust off. You want to keep alienating the people who would be fucking paying to watch your goddamn series because they've grown up reading Tolkien their entire lives, but yet you want to push us away and call us every fucking name in the book and pander to those whose backs you had to scratch, egos you've had to stroke, like with Wizards of the Coast and so forth, who never once gave a fucking shit about Tolkien or Middle-earth until they could see themselves on screen, literally based on skin color, sex, and sexuality. That's fucking it. That's how shallow these assholes are, because they can't look at a character and see beyond those superficial qualities to relate to said character. I love Gimli the dwarf. I'm not a dwarf, nor am I male, but I love the character. I love the hobbits. I love the elves. I'm 5'2". I'm not nearly as tall as Galadriel. She's written to be 6'4". But I look beyond those qualities, and I relate to the personalities. The much deeper qualities than the skin deep ones. But let's just dive right into the stupidity, shall we? Alright? The first two episodes of Rings of Power have been released. So far, the series has been met with a lot of positivity, from the stunning visuals to the beginnings of a number of interest. Can you not know how to spell number? Jesus fucking Christ, editors. Of interesting storylines for characters old and new. Okay, first off, been met with positivity. That's just critics. If you go on Rotten Tomatoes, now Rotten Tomatoes is not the best source for determining basically how well a property is received necessarily, but at the same time, critics give it like, 80+%, in the 80s percentile. User reviews in the 30s. So, where is it being met with a lot of positivity, other than with the access media? And a number of interesting storylines for characters old and new. Those interesting storylines were already written by Tolkien, but yet these interesting storylines are basically pulled out of the showrunners' asses and put onto screen because they have no rights to adapting anything regarding the Second Age. So what can they do but tell their own story? And they literally said that they were going to tell their own story several months back by saying they were going to tell the one Tolkien never wrote. So these are not Tolkien's characters. This is not Tolkien's world. This is not Tolkien's story. This is the Amazon story. So, no. We would have had the interesting storylines if they had the rights to the actual source material. And the first two episodes are fucking boring as fuck. However, a section of the internet population has made it their mission to attack the staff and actors on the show for the depiction of a number of characters, basically those who are not white. I criticized the actor who plays Elrond, because that is not Elrond. I criticized the actor who's playing Celebrimbor, because that is not Celebrimbor. It's not being personal against the actors, but I'm criticizing those characters, and they are fucking white. I'm criticizing Galadriel. She's a white fucking female. She's an elf, but she's a white female. White! Gil-galad, I fucking criticized. And in the next episode, I'm pretty confident we're going to see Elendil. The actor whom I've criticized, who's supposed to fucking know what he's talking about, because he claims to have read the books, and yet claims that Elendil is never fleshed out. So we're criticizing every fucking character. Both canonical and non-canonical. And the reason why we're criticizing the non-canonical characters, those are the tokenization characters. Literally. That's why we're criticizing them. That's pretty much why we're criticizing them, because they've built in their own defense. Well, you must not like this character because he or she is black, or he or she's female, so forth. They've built that in by purposely casting in that regard, so anyone criticizing it, they can turn around, pull out the playbook, dust it off, and say, oh, you're racist, oh, you're sexist, misogynistic, and so forth. Even though we're just saying, that's not how Tolkien described elves. That's not how Tolkien described dwarves in Khazad-dûm. That's all we're saying. That's all we're fucking saying. You want to show dark-skinned dwarves? There are plenty of fucking subsects of that they could have depicted, but no, they chose the member berries with Khazad-dûm and Moria, right? They had to go with the member berries. Same with the black elf. They made him a sylvan elf, even though the elves are described as fair. Fair-skinned. But no. They did that. They purposefully did that. And I don't care if you want to come back at me and others who are criticizing that and say it's just colorblind casting. No, they did it with fucking purpose because of the inclusion policy Amazon Studios has put in place. It started with the first release images, which includes the dwarven wife of Prince Durin, who is a lore break, by the way. There were never two Durins at the same time, but whatever. Disa, played by Sophia Nomvet, trolls attacked her on Twitter as she is a black woman playing a dwarf. First off, if we were at all remarking on her skin color, it's because the dwarves of Khazad-dûm are not described in that regard, especially because they live underground. They would not have the sun or anything like that, so the skin would start getting blanched. Alright? There would not be any dark-skinned dwarves in Khazad-dûm, just because of that alone. Secondly, the biggest criticism that people had, first off, was because she has no fucking beard! Dwarf women have facial hair. Dwarf women have facial hair, and when they travel outside and they travel amongst the humans can't tell them apart. So it gave rise, like Gimli said in Two Towers, to the notion there were never any dwarf women, because they blended in amongst the dwarf men. Survival pretty much means, but that's the case, because they would wear the same similar garb as the men and so forth. It didn't really come across as differentiating based on dress the different sexes and so forth. And that was one of the biggest fucking criticisms against her. Really, it was the first off, is where is the fucking beard? None of the dwarf women that I've seen so far, when they finally got to the fucking dwarves in Khazad-dûm in the second episode, have beards. None of them have beards. And I'm criticizing every goddamn one of them. Doesn't matter her skin color, I'm criticizing every goddamn one of them, to include the white female dwarves. The trolling became so bad that Amazon stopped accepting reviews on their website. The number of false one-star reviews were deemed too much. Well, are they false? You're hiding these reviews. You're purposely hiding these reviews so no one can tell anyway for certain if they are false reviews, if they're troll reviews or not, because we can't fucking see them. We can only take your word for it. And Amazon has been fucking lying to Tolkien fans pretty much since obtaining the rights from the Tolkien estate. So, and you expect us to believe that you're purposely hiding these reviews because they are review bombing, troll reviews? Well, review bombing goes two ways, fucking sweetheart. Alright? Review bombing happens on both ends. Alright? So you're going to show us the copy and paste 10-star reviews? Are you going to show those? Or anything like that? Or are you just going to hide the ones that maybe, just maybe, you don't want people to see because it's genuine criticism of your fucking series so far? How about that? Okay. Some have argued that it is just justified to point out that J.R. Tolkien, the author of the book the series is based on, wrote some races to have particular features. Yes! Yes! How about we take the book Roots? How about we take that work? Roots. Alright? A work where the characters are black. Alright? Alright? And you race swap them to Latinos or Asians. Would you accept that? Even though the author specifically described certain characters in certain ways? Would you be okay with that? Alright? You all on Twitter pointing out that Middle-earth is not real. Well, Wakanda isn't real either. So, let's just recast all the characters from Black Panther and make them Asian. They're white South Africans too. You want to point out Middle Earth isn't real. Wakanda isn't real either. In one example, elves are described as wondrous fair. Wondrous fair. However, considering the first of the books were written nearly a century ago, it should come as no surprise that a number of characterizations are based upon racist tropes. No, they're not based on fucking racist tropes, because Tolkien specifically wrote The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings specifically, basically as a mythology for Britain. As a mythology for Britain. Pulling from other European mythology. So no, it wasn't based on racist tropes. None of it was based on racist tropes. And like I've pointed out earlier in this video, there are, amongst the humans, for example, Easterlings, dark-skinned. You want to fucking show diversity? There it fucking is. Are you going to do that? Are you going to do that? There are darker-skinned dwarves in different areas of Middle-earth. Are you going to show them? Are you going to show them? Are you going to hide behind... Are you going to hide behind and use your actors and actresses as pawns for political messaging? Which is what you're fucking doing. As well as fucking lying about Tolkien right goddamn there. In another, orcs, the villainous foothold soldiers of the armies of Morgoth and Sauron, are said to be repulsive versions of the, to Europeans, least lovely Mongol types, alright? Nothing to do with fucking race. Mongoloid, look it up. Mongoloid. It's physical characteristics, basically. Orcs, the name orc stems from Roman mythology, you fucking assholes. Alright, but disregarding that, pretty much, orcs used to be elves. Alright, orcs used to be elves, and the reason why they look the way they do is because they've been tortured and mutilated and so forth, and brainwashed and into serving Morgoth and Sauron. Because evil cannot create, it can only destroy, and Morgoth and Sauron can only destroy the children of Iluvatar for their own purposes. Right? So it's not fucking racist trope. Again, they just keep wanting to denigrate Tolkien. They keep wanting to denigrate Tolkien. They're going after Tolkien, and they're gonna fucking realize that is the... Tolkien fandom is older than just about every fucking fandom out there, and we will not bend the knee. We will not bend over for these assholes. Alright? That these fictional barriers are ignored should not prove to be a large hurdle for most audiences. If they do, then maybe the series isn't for them. So you're basically telling long-time Tolkien, Middle-earth fans and so forth, then if you don't like it, then this is not for you. You're literally pushing them out the door and saying this is not for you. Long-time fans, the ones that have read the books, pored over the letters Tolkien wrote, notes and so forth, you're telling us that we don't know what the fuck we're talking about, and it's not for us. Because we can't admit the racist tropes within the series, within the books. Even though there are none. Steve Toussaint, who plays Corlys Valerion in the Rings of Power competitor House of the Dragon, had this to say when his role as a naval commander with black skin was attacked. It's because that character is described a certain way in the book. Alright? Again, his character was described a particular way, and his character is not black. We would be just as upset if the character in the book was black and you race swapped him to white. We would be just as fucking upset. But no, you got that built-in defense against the fucking racists out there, right? The ones who are just pointing out, hey, that's not how the author wrote it. And so forth. They are happy with the dragon flying, Toussaint said. They're happy with white hair and violet-colored eyes, but a rich black guy, that's beyond the pale. Again, if the character's written as black in the book, we would have no fucking problem with it, because that's how the author wrote the fucking character. But when you tokenize, when you race swap just purely for tokenization, for virtue signaling, for pandering, sociopolitical agendas, identity politics, what have you, that's where we have the issue, because that's solely the reason. That's solely the reason. This feeling is echoed by Ishmael Cruz Cordova, who plays the elf Arondir. Hailing from Puerto Rico, Cordova pushed back against his aim to play an elf in the series despite his black skin. Again, elves are described a particular way. When I said I want to be an elf, people said, elves don't look like you, he said in an interview. When I heard about the character on the show, it felt like a mission. So basically, activism. Right fucking there, activism. Alright? That's it. That was at least his purpose. And I'm sorry if people told you elves don't look like you, alright? But, hey, Wizard of the Coast is going full woke, so have them adapt it into another live-action series or movie and so forth. Because no one batted an eye at the Black Elf in the early 2000s D&D movie, because there are really no set skin colors or anything like that amongst the races. And so forth. Because you are literally creating original characters. Players are literally creating original characters for themselves. Alright? Certain races have attributes, certain races, and so forth. But if an elf has a relationship with a male elf or female elf has a relationship with a black human, guess what? You're gonna have a biracial elf, and no one would blink an eye. No one would blink an eye. Alright? Because that's within that world. But you're taking a known intellectual property, known works, and using it as a vehicle to push an agenda, to whatever it is. Altering Galadriel's story to pump up the strong whammon, even though it goes against everything that Galadriel was written as. By bastardizing Elrond, who actually was a commander in the lore, actually was a commander, because they're gonna have to fucking figure out how to explain why Galadriel's not on that battlefield in the last alliance. How are they gonna fucking explain that? I seen an article titled, "When Wokeness Comes to Middle-earth, Why Some Say Diverse Casting Ruins the New Lord of the Rings Series. The idea of black elves and black characters in general is described by conservatives as making propaganda." Yes, it's all the evil fucking conservatives out there. No one else is complaining about this. It's always alt-right. It's always conservatives, and so forth. Having black actors in an adaptation of a 100-year-old story is propaganda, apparently. Tell that to Cordova, who finally has a chance to feature in a role previously excluded based upon fiction. Okay, yeah, again. Wakanda isn't real, so recast it with all Latino actors. It's not real, so recast it with all Asian actors. Or all white actors. They're white Africans. That's the point. You would be just as upset, we would be just as upset, because that is not the source material. So, you all trying to paint us as racists? Alright? Guess what, Amazon Studios? Guess what, media? We're gonna push back a lot fucking harder than other fandoms have. We're gonna push back a lot fucking harder. This right here, we will not stand for this. And if you think 30-some% is low, think fucking again. Alright? Because we will be getting the message out there. We will be, some of us, myself included and others, are watching the series. I'm not saying how I'm watching the series, but watching the series. And we're getting it out there, all the fucking lore breaking, all the bad storytelling, and so forth, in this series. All the lies. But, what do you make of it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you agree with this author? Do you disagree with this author? Are you watching the Rings of Power series? If you are, what do you think of it? Do you like it? Not like it? Are you in the middle? Let me know all those thoughts down in the comments below. Again, I will be live on Twitch sometime later this evening. I don't know what I'll be playing because I'm still fighting a headache pretty much. So we'll see how I feel once it gets later on in the evening. I'll also be live on Twitch and Twitter. Well, Twitch. I mean, later tonight on Twitch. Later on Twitch tomorrow. On YouTube for the Cringe Factory on Wednesday. I think I might make that a Rings of Power 3rd edition, pretty much, for this week, because there's a lot to sift through as far as cringe in that regards. And then more videos to come, including the review once I'm able to watch episode 3 of Rings of Power later on this week. I will also try to do a solo live stream on my new live channel, Jade Shadow Live, this Friday, because I won't be able to play on Twitch in the evening because I have to get up early the next day. So look for that solo live stream as well. I will post the links to the new live channel as well as my merch store in the pinned comment for my videos. So look for that as well. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. This is Mara Jade. Catch you on the dark side, and hell has no fury like a Tolkien fan scorned.